BabyFirst. Click the subscribe button below.
Adventure, fun, and fantasy are waiting on the shelf. A story's so much better with a friend than by yourself. The cover picture is a doorway to another land. So gather round and let the story take us by the hand. We're telling tales with friends, and we've got plans for you. GaaGaa's playing Goldilocks, this bear is peekaboo. Here's Tilly, Larry, and our Harry, great to have you all. Stories are for everyone, the young, old, big, and small. Tales and Friends. Cinderella. Cinderella is played by Giggs. The fairy is played by GaaGaa. Sir Winston Ruffles is played by Harry the Bunny. Cinderella was a very special little girl. She had no family, and her only friends were the animals in the woods. All the birds, mice, and squirrels just loved Cinderella, and she loved them right back. One day, a little birdie whispered something in her ear. "There's going to be a grand ball in the palace this evening," said the birdie. "Sir Winston Ruffles, the most famous singer in all the land, will be performing right when the clock strikes midnight, and we are all invited." Cinderella was so excited that she gave the birdie a big kiss and ran off to her house to pick out a dress to wear. But when she opened her closet, all she saw were old clothes. Maybe she could buy something new, she thought. But when she opened her purse, she found no money. What was she to do? She fell to the floor and started to cry. Just then, a fairy appeared and asked why such a sweet girl was so upset. Cinderella cried, "I can't go to the grand ball tonight because I don't have anything nice to wear, and I won't be able to meet Sir Winston Ruffles, the most famous singer in all the land." The fairy fluttered down and said, "That is sad. What will you do?" But Cinderella had an idea. "Could you cast a magic spell to make me a shiny new dress?" The fairy wiped the tears from Cinderella's cheeks. "My dearest Cinderella, magic will happen only if you help yourself first," the fairy said as she flew out the window. Cinderella decided that's exactly what she would do. She rolled up her sleeves and got to work making her own dress. Cinderella took old clothes from her closet, cut them up, and began sewing them back together to make something new and beautiful. But the clock was ticking faster and faster. "I'm running out of time. I might not make it to Sir Winston Ruffles' performance." So she started cutting and sewing as fast as she could. As Cinderella worked, her animal friends came to the windowsill. "Look, Cinderella needs our help," they shouted. So the birdies, the mice, and the squirrels all jumped into action and started to help. Now everyone was cutting and sewing as fast as they could. When they were done, Cinderella stepped in front of the mirror to reveal a shiny new dress. She was so happy and thankful, but then she looked at the clock. "Oh no, it's almost midnight. I won't make it in time to see Sir Winston Ruffles." Cinderella fell to her knees and started to cry. Just then, the fairy fluttered through the window. "My dear Cinderella," she said, "you did your part. You helped yourself by making a beautiful dress. Now it's time for me to help you get to the ball on time. With some magic." The fairy smiled and waved her wand high into the air, casting a magical spell. Suddenly, the pumpkin by the door turned into a carriage. The mouse turned into a horse, and the squirrel turned into a driver. "Your carriage awaits, my dear," said the fairy. Cinderella thanked the fairy, jumped into the carriage, and off they went as fast as they could towards the palace. As the carriage pulled up to the palace, Cinderella opened the door, jumped out, and ran up the stairs towards the ballroom. Just as she reached the top of the steps, one of her slippers slipped off, and she fell to the ground. She looked up at the clock and saw that it was almost midnight. She was too late. Just then, she heard a kind voice ask, "Is this yours, my friend?" She wiped away her tears and saw Sir Winston Ruffles, the most famous singer in all the land, holding her slipper. He helped her up off the ground and slid the slipper back onto her foot. "May I escort you to the ballroom?" he asked. Cinderella smiled and walked with him towards the ballroom just as the clock struck midnight. The end.
First, it was awesome. Now it's truly amazing. First app gets you instant access to the beloved BabyFirst TV channel, now with an upgraded experience. Wherever you go and anytime you want, offering a wide range of original videos, games, songs, books, and more, making for hours of educational, high-quality entertainment accessible from any device with our all-inclusive subscription. Search the app stores for BF100 to download First today and unlock a world of educational fun for your child.
Little Red Riding Hood. Little Red Riding Hood is played by Giggs. The mother is played by Al. The granny is played by Eve. The wolf is played by Hugg. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who lived in the woods. She loved to explore the woods wearing her big red hood, so everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood, or Red for short. One day, she wanted to visit her granny on the other side of the woods. Her mother helped her pack a picnic basket full of delicious food to bring along. Once everything was packed, her mother gave her a kiss and said, "Don't let the food get cold. Go straight to Granny's house." "I will," said Red as she kissed her mom and skipped off into the forest. As she ran through the woods, the smell of the food in the basket attracted many furry friends. First, a fluffy squirrel scurried up and gave the basket a sniff. "I would sure love a bite of that apple pie," the squirrel said, rubbing his belly. "And I would love to give you a bite," Red smiled, "but this is for my granny, and it's getting cold, so I have to be going." The squirrel understood and waved as Red went on her way. Then a little blue jay flew down from a tree. "Something smells delicious," she chirped. "I would love a bite of that bread." "Sorry, this is for my granny," Red smiled, "and it's getting cold, so I have to be going." The blue jay understood and waved as Red went on her way. Then another animal crept out of the woods. It was a big wolf with big ears, big eyes, and big white teeth. The wolf seemed a bit scary to Red. "What delicious food you have," the wolf growled. "I would love a bite of everything." Red didn't like the wolf, but she was still polite. "I would love to give you a bite," Red said, "but this is for my granny, and it's getting cold, so I have to be going." And with that, she left the wolf in the woods and continued to her granny's. But the wolf was really hungry and wanted that food, so he ran to Granny's house as fast as he could. When he got there, he saw that Granny was down by the stream washing her clothes. So he had an idea. He would sneak into the house, dress up like her, and trick Red into giving him the food. As the wolf got into Granny's bed, wearing her nightgown and cap, Red opened the front door. "Granny," she yelled, "I'm here with lunch." The wolf, disguised his gruffy growl with a high voice, shouted, "Hi, dear! Why don't you bring the food here?" Red ran into Granny's room. She looked at her granny, but something didn't seem right. "Why do you have such big ears?" she asked. "Oh, these? said the wolf, trying to sound like Granny. "The better to hear you with, my dear." Red wasn't convinced and stepped closer. "And why do you have such big eyes, Granny?" "The better to see you with, my dear," the wolf said impatiently. But Red still wasn't sure, so she stepped even closer. "And why do you have such big teeth?" "The better to eat that delicious food," the wolf answered as he jumped from the bed, trying to grab the basket. "You're not my Granny," Red yelled. "You're the big bad wolf from the woods." Just then, Granny came into the room. "Is that you, big bad wolf?" The wolf jumped out of bed with his tail between his legs. "Yes," he said. "I'm sorry for lying, but I was just so hungry." "Well," Granny said, "I don't like lies. Not from people and especially not from big bad wolves. But if you are truly sorry, you can have lunch with us." "I'm sorry," said the wolf, and promised to never lie again. Granny celebrated by inviting everyone in the woods to enjoy a delicious picnic. The end.
First, it was awesome. Now it's truly amazing. First app gets you instant access to the beloved BabyFirst TV channel, now with an upgraded experience. Wherever you go and anytime you want, offering a wide range of original videos, games, songs, books, and more, making for hours of educational, high-quality entertainment accessible from any device with our all-inclusive subscription. Search the app stores for BF100 to download First today and unlock a world of educational fun for your child.
Pinocchio. Pinocchio is played by Harry the Bunny. Geppetto is played by Hugg. The fairy is played by Giggs. Once upon a time, there was a wondrous old woodworker named Geppetto who didn't have any children. But he wanted one so badly that he took a freshly cut piece of wood and carved a puppet that looked just like a boy. That night, he went to sleep and dreamt that his puppet would turn into a real boy and be his son. As he slept, a friendly fairy fluttered by and decided to help Geppetto. She flew over the puppet and sprinkled magic powder over its head. The next morning, while Geppetto was making breakfast, the wooden puppet began to talk. Geppetto couldn't believe it. Then the puppet began to move. It even started dancing. Geppetto was so happy that even though the puppet was made out of wood, he decided to treat him like a real boy. He named him Pinocchio and sent him to school to learn to read and write. But before Pinocchio left, Geppetto warned him to be careful. He must go right to school and then come right back home. Pinocchio smiled, said okay, and happily hopped off to school, leaving Geppetto waving at the door. On his way to school, Pinocchio saw a group of children having fun on the playground. He remembered what Geppetto had told him, go right to school and then come right home. But the kids were laughing and playing and having so much fun that Pinocchio decided to join them for just a minute. This was the first time Pinocchio ever played, and he loved it. In fact, Pinocchio was having so much fun playing that he forgot all about school. Just then, he heard a bell ring. It was school letting out. He had promised Geppetto that he'd go to school. What was he going to do? When Pinocchio got home, Geppetto was very happy to see him and asked him how his first day at school went. Pinocchio was too embarrassed, so he lied and said that it went great. Right at that moment, Pinocchio's nose grew longer. But Geppetto was so excited that he didn't notice that Pinocchio's nose was growing. Instead, he ran off to his workshop to make Pinocchio a brand new wooden pencil box to take to school the next day. "Do you like your teacher?" Geppetto asked as he started working. "Yes, I do," said Pinocchio, lying again. And just like before, his nose grew even more. Pinocchio didn't understand what was happening. Could his nose be growing because he was lying? He went to the mirror, and when he saw his long nose, he started to cry. Geppetto heard the crying and came immediately. "What happened?" he asked. "Something is wrong with my nose," sobbed Pinocchio. Geppetto looked closer and saw Pinocchio's long nose. "Don't worry," said Geppetto and hugged Pinocchio. "I will help you and everything will be all right." Pinocchio saw how much his father cared for him and was ashamed that he didn't tell him the truth. In a quiet voice, Pinocchio admitted that he was lying and didn't go to school. As he told the truth, his nose got smaller and smaller until it was back to its original size. Geppetto wiped the tears from Pinocchio's cheeks and thanked him for telling the truth. A sparkling ray of light came through the window, and the fairy appeared. She said that because Pinocchio decided to tell the truth, he had earned the right to become a real boy. The fairy waved her wand, and in a burst of magical dust, transformed Pinocchio into a real, live boy. Pinocchio looked down at his arms and legs and saw they were no longer wood. Geppetto couldn't believe his eyes. He finally had a real boy for a son. Geppetto jumped to his feet, and together with Pinocchio, they started dancing and singing. Even the fairy joined in. From that day on, Pinocchio always told the truth, and he and Geppetto lived happily ever after. The end.
First, it was awesome. Now it's truly amazing. First app gets you instant access to the beloved BabyFirst TV channel, now with an upgraded experience. Wherever you go and anytime you want, offering a wide range of original videos, games, songs, books, and more, making for hours of educational, high-quality entertainment accessible from any device with our all-inclusive subscription. Search the app stores for BF100 to download First today and unlock a world of educational fun for your child.
Adventure, fun, and fantasy are waiting on the shelf. A story's so much better with a friend than by yourself. The cover picture is a doorway to another land. So gather round and let the story take us by the hand. We're telling tales with friends, and we've got plans for you. GaaGaa's playing Goldilocks, this bear is peekaboo. Here's Tilly, Larry, and our Harry. Great to have you all. Stories are for everyone, the young, old, big, and small. Tales and Friends. The Elves and the Shoemaker. The Shoemaker is played by Sammy. The wife is played by Eve. The Elves are played by the Color Crew. The kids are played by GooGoo and GaaGaa. There once was an old shoemaker and his wife. They were very good people, and even though they didn't have much for themselves, always helped the needy families in their village. One day, the shoemaker saw a barefoot child in the street and gave her his last pair of new shoes. When he returned home, he looked at his barren work table and sighed to his wife. "We only have 2 small pieces of leather left, not enough to make even one more pair of shoes." The old shoemaker was worried that they would run out of money. "If you help others, then others will help you," his wife smiled. This made the old man feel better because he knew his wife was right. "Yes, we will be okay," he said, and got ready for bed. When they woke up the next day, they were surprised by what they saw on the table. A pair of new shoes. "What in the world? Who made these?" the old man said. His wife was just as confused as he was. "Not me," she said, "but maybe we can sell these today." And that's exactly what happened. Later that day, the shoemaker sold the shoes, giving him enough money to buy leather for 2 more pairs of shoes. But on his way to purchase the leather, he saw a boy in the street asking for food. The old man looked at the money in his hand and gave some to the boy. The boy's eyes widened and he ran off to the market. Later that evening, the shoemaker returned home. He told his wife that he helped a poor child, but now they only have enough leather to make 1 new pair of shoes. "If you help others, then others will help you," his wife reminded him. He nodded warmly, set the scraps of leather on the table, and went to bed. When they woke up the next day, they were surprised again at what they saw on the table. 2 new pairs of shoes. "Who is making us these shoes?" the old man asked. "We must find whoever is helping us and thank them," the shoemaker said. "Yes," his wife agreed, "and let's give them milk and cookies to show them how much we care." So that night, they set more leather on the table and hid in the corner with a tray of milk and cookies, waiting to see who came. They waited and waited, and just when they were about to give up, 2 little elves with big eyes and big ears scurried across the floor wearing tattered old clothes. The elves jumped onto the table and got to work making new pairs of shoes. The shoemaker and his wife smiled as they watched the curious creatures work. Finally, the shoemaker and his wife stepped out from the shadows holding a tray of cookies and glasses. "We want to thank you for helping us," the wife smiled. "Would you join us for a snack?" the shoemaker asked. The elves sat down at the table and gobbled up all the cookies. "Where do you live?" the shoemaker asked. "Under a bridge in the village," said one of the elves. "It gets cold at night, but we huddle together to keep warm." "If you help others, then others will help you," the shoemaker remembered. "You no longer have to live under the bridge," he exclaimed. "Please come and live with us and we can be one big happy shoemaking family," his wife said. The elves jumped to their feet and gave the shoemaker and his wife big hugs. And from that night on, they lived happily ever after, making shoes and eating milk and cookies. The end.
First, it was awesome. Now it's truly amazing. First app gets you instant access to the beloved BabyFirst TV channel, now with an upgraded experience. Wherever you go and anytime you want, offering a wide range of original videos, games, songs, books, and more, making for hours of educational, high-quality entertainment accessible from any device with our all-inclusive subscription. Search the app stores for BF100 to download First today and unlock a world of educational fun for your child.
The 3 Little Pigs. The 3 Little Pigs are played by GooGoo, GaaGaa, and Peekaboo. Once upon a time, there were 3 lazy little pigs who lived on a farm. One day, it rained and it didn't stop raining for a week. But the pigs just watched, too tired to keep the water out of their house, a messy pig pen. When the storm was over, the pig pen was ruined. They had to build a new home, but how? They looked around the farm for something to build a new house with. The horse had some hay, the cow had some wood, and the rooster had some bricks. "Building a new house is such hard work," said one of the pigs. "I'm so tired." "And so are we," the other two joined in. "Let's use hay, it'll be easier." So the pigs got to work, whining and complaining the whole time. "I want to take a nap," said one of the lazy little pigs. "I want to eat," said another. "We're tired," they all cried. But finally, after a long day, the three little pigs had built a house out of hay. "Now we can sleep," they exclaimed. So they went inside and got into bed. But just then, a drop of rain fell through the roof. Then another, and another. They looked out of the window and saw a big storm blowing. The thunder crashed and flashed. Inside their straw house, the three little pigs were worried. "What if the roof blows away? What if the walls fall down? What are we gonna do?" the pigs cried. Just then, the storm huffed and it puffed and it blew their house down. In the morning, they had to build a new one. The cow had wood and the rooster had bricks. "Bricks are too heavy," said the pigs, so they decided to use wood instead. It was easier. This time, they whined, but not as much as before. "I want to take a nap, but I'll wait till after we build the house," said one of the pigs. "And I want to eat, but I'll wait too," said another. "We'll rest later," they all cried. Finally, after a long day, the three little pigs had built a wood house. "Now we can sleep," they exclaimed. At night, they went inside and got into bed. But just then, a drop of rain fell through the roof. Then another, and another. They looked out of the window and saw a big storm blowing outside their house again. The thunder crashed and flashed. Inside their wood house, the three little pigs were worried again. The storm huffed and it puffed and it blew their wood house down. In the morning, they had to build another house, but this time they needed something stronger than hay or wood. The pigs remembered the rooster's bricks. They were heavy and would take a lot of work, but the pigs didn't care anymore. "Let's get to work," they all cried. "We're not tired." They jumped up and started building with the bricks. They didn't whine or complain at all. Finally, after a long day, the three little pigs had built a brick house. At night, they went inside their new home to get ready for bed. But just then, they heard a drop of rain on the roof. Then another, and another. They looked out the window and saw another big storm blowing. The thunder crashed and flashed. But inside their brick house, the three little pigs weren't worried. "The roof is too strong to blow away. The walls are too thick to fall down. We worked hard and built a strong house." And they were right. The storm huffed and puffed, but it didn't blow their house down. The next morning, when the storm was over, the three little pigs walked outside to admire their new house. They learned that if you work hard and work together, you can do anything. And from that day on, the three little pigs were never lazy again. The end.
First, it was awesome. Now it's truly amazing. First app gets you instant access to the beloved BabyFirst TV channel, now with an upgraded experience. Wherever you go and anytime you want, offering a wide range of original videos, games, songs, books, and more, making for hours of educational high-quality entertainment accessible from any device with our all-inclusive subscription. Search the app stores for BF100 to download First today and unlock a world of educational fun for your child.
Jack and the Beanstalk. Jack and his sister are played by the Puzzle Kid. The friends are played by the Color Crew. Many years ago, in a village far, far away, there was a little farm. And on that little farm, in that little village, lived a boy named Jack with his little sister. But the village was in trouble. It hadn't rained in so long that they couldn't grow any food to eat, and they were hungry. One day, they heard a sound coming from above. They looked up and saw a giant pea falling from the sky. They dove out of the way just as the pea landed in the front yard. Jack's sister, Jenny, grabbed a knife and fork and ran over to the pea. "Finally, we have food! Let's eat!" she yelled. But Jack stopped her. "Instead of eating the pea, why don't we plant it and grow more peas?" he said. "But I'm hungry now," Jenny said, stomping her feet. "I am too," said Jack. "But if we put in a little work and patience, something may grow from this pea and we might be rewarded with even more peas." Jenny hesitated at first, but then agreed to put down her knife and fork. She helped Jack take the pea into his room and plant it. They poured what little water they had into the planter and waited. And waited. And waited. Nothing happened for days. When suddenly a little green leaf peeked out from the ground. And the next day it peeked out a little more. Then, on the third day, the ground started to shake. And then the house started to shake. Then everything started to shake. The little leaf in the planter grew into a beanstalk. But the beanstalk didn't stop growing. It grew as high as Jack, and then as high as the ceiling. And then it broke through the ceiling and stretched up into the sky. Jack and Jenny jumped around the beanstalk excited. "You were right," Jenny exclaimed. "Something did grow out of the giant pea. But I wonder what it is, and where are all the other peas?" "You're right," Jack said. "Maybe we need to work a little more and have some more patience to get to the food." "But how?" Jenny asked. Her tummy was rumbling. "Let's see what's at the top of the beanstalk," Jack said as he started climbing. Jenny followed her brother and they climbed up the beanstalk, through the roof and through the clouds. When they reached the top, they couldn't believe what they saw. "Jack," Jenny exclaimed, "you were right. There is more food up here." They looked out over fields filled with the biggest and brightest fruits and vegetables they'd ever seen. Bananas as big as boats. Tomatoes the size of carriages. Carrots as tall as towers. "We can feed our whole village with one of these apples," Jack said. Jack and Jenny rolled up their sleeves and got to work. They worked hard for a whole day, bringing food down from the beanstalk. By the time they were done, they had filled their family's farm with enough food to feed their village, and the village down the road, and the village next to that one. People came from miles around to fill their carts with food to fill their bellies. The next week, Jack and Jenny sat down with some friends for a feast of potatoes as big as boulders and celery the size of ships. "How did you know the bean would grow into a huge stalk that would give us all this food?" the friends asked. "We didn't," Jenny said, "but Jack said if we worked hard with some patience, then we would be rewarded." Jack was glad his sister learned a lesson and gave her a big hug. "Now, who wants another potato?" Jack asked as he held the vegetable high over his head with 2 hands. The end.
BabyFirst, click the subscribe button below.